Hello, it's me, and I'm going to go over the Super Z 2x2 Skewb, just kind of its motion, its quality, and a little bit about its solve also. So what's interesting about this one is it's a combination of a puzzle that is a helicopter cube, which is a classic edge turner, and I always thought the edge turners looked interesting. The helicopter looks interesting because it's an edge turner, but it's got cuts that look like it should have 2x2 cuts. And it has other cuts that look like they could be skewed. You know, this pattern over here. So it seemed like not too much of an effort to turn this into hybrids, where you can actually have a 2x2 skewb, and that's what this is over here. This is actually a 2x2 helicopter. So you can do 2x2 turns with this, and you can also do helicopter. This one is not yet mass produced. I don't know if I've ever gone through a tutorial with this. I think it uses magnets in here to keep it stable, but it's actually a good staple puzzle. But yeah, it's a 2x2 and a helicopter cube at the same time. So what this is it's a 2x2 and a skewb at the same time, but no helicopter turns. So I think my ultimate version of this, which would obfuscate the need for having a skewb or a 2x2, or even a helicopter cube, where you can do skewb moves, you can do 2x2 moves, and you can do helicopter moves. Anyway, so the puzzle itself is what I would call a true hybrid. It is a true hybrid between a 2x2, and it also, you can solve it just like a 2x2, use it exactly as such, or you can just use it as a skewb, just like one of these guys over here. Now I'd also say that the skewb is probably best thought of as a cubic transformation of a two-layered face-turning octahedron, which is this guy over here. This is called the diamond skewb, but really you can look at this as a two-layer face-turning octahedron because, well, it can act as a face turner. This, when looking at it, you don't know what it is. It's certainly not a face turner. It's not exactly a corner turner, although it turns on the corner. So I've always looked at this as a shape mod of this. So when you look at it, you can almost say that this is hybridization of two platonic solids, a cube and an octahedron, although the octahedral version just has been shape-shifted or modified to a cubic form. So this is what happens when you take two platonic solids and fuse them together. Is that the right one? Yeah, that's the right one. Okay, so there you have it, and I'm still looking for the combination of all three of these functionalities. In terms of the puzzle itself, the quality is actually quite good. So the skewb turns are really very smooth. The 2x2 turns are good too. It's a little catchy, but really not much at all. So I don't think you can speed cube through, but the quality is good, so definitely worth it. A very playable puzzle. Okay, in terms of the solve, the question is, do I reduce this to a skewb and solve it as such, or do I reduce it to a 2x2 and solve it like that? Well, I think the best thing to do is to reduce it to a 2x2. Now that's different from the strategy of this guy over here. I think with this is I did not reduce it to a 2x2. I just solved it as a skewb where the 2x2 moves really didn't play too much of a role because you can change orbits anyway with this. So I may revisit this at some point. Okay, so really the solve of this is fairly straightforward. It requires no new algorithms. It just assumes that you know how to solve a 2x2. In terms of knowing how to solve a skewb, you actually don't even need to know how to solve a skewb because I really don't do too much of a skewb solve with it. The skewb moves are just done to reduce it to a 2x2, but the actual skewb itself isn't really involved in that. But you do have to know the algorithms that you need to know to solve this. So it's really a matter of positioning. So the main thing to bear in mind is the adjacent corner swap. So the adjacent corner swap will take these two and swap these two over here. You put one to the front right, the other to the back right, and just do the algorithm 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. We turn the puzzle 90 degrees counterclockwise, and then reverse what we just did, 2R, UI, 2R, U, 2R. And you can turn this back if you want. To really put it back into its original configuration is you turn it this way, and you do a U move. So you can see it swap these two. So that's going to come in handy, and that's really much you need to know. Aside from one other thing, 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R, look at this back. The other aspect to understand with the 2x2 is the mathematical principle of doing a repetition of a commutator, which will get it back to the same position. So if I do RIDI-RD, that brings this down to here. If I do it again, RIDI-RD, it pops it back up to here but rotated wrong. This got skewed. If I do that RIDI-RD pattern down and up 3 times, it'll return me back to my original position, right? So I'll call that 1 time RIDI-RD, RIDI-RD to bring it back up. That's 2 times RIDI-RD, and then again RIDI-RD. That 3rd time of down and up, so that's RIDI-RD twice, returns it back to the original configuration. So that's okay, but as long as I do it 3 times, I know that the bottom is going to be right back to its configuration, but I can move different portions on the top part. In other words, RIDI-RD, RIDI-RD. So that was 1 cycle. The bottom will return back as long as I do 2 more, but I could put another piece up here. So I'll do it 2 times here. RIDI-RD, RIDI-RD, that's 1. And again, RIDI-RD, RIDI-RD, that's 2. So these have been rotated, but the bottom is back where it was. So that's another principle that you have to understand regarding the second layer solve. And those are really the only things to bear in mind. So how then does that translate into this? Well, I'm just going to give you the only algorithm that I really use, which is based on those algorithms, just a combination of those. And what this is going to do, let's see, we'll put this up top here. What it's ultimately going to do is I want to move this to here, this to here, and this to here. So we're taking this piece, and the way to remember that is if I do a Skewb move, it'll join to here. So I know this will go here, this will go here, and this will go here. The way that this is going to work is you're going to do a Skewb move, followed by an adjacent corner swap, followed by another Skewb move. So really that's all that is. So what you're going to notice is that when you do a Skewb move, every piece is affected by that move. Every corner is affected, except for this corner and this corner. So remember, when you're doing an algorithm, you want to isolate a piece in order to do what's called a middle move. So if I do a move like this, splat, I want to see, can I isolate what I just did if I were to look at this as a corner and move it to another corner that wasn't affected? And the answer is, yeah, this corner wasn't affected. So I want to swap these two, and then when I move it back, it's only the piece in here that's going to be affected. So the piece that I moved it into, the piece I moved it away, and this piece. All the rest are going to move back. So the way that that's going to work is, so this will go here, this will go here, this will go here, and this will go here ultimately. So moving this in front of me, I'll do a Skewb move here, bang, so this is here. Now I want to swap these two. So the way that that's going to work is I'm going to take the two that I want to swap, move it here so that one of them is going to be to the front right, the other is going to be to the back right on the top. Then we're going to do an adjacent edge, adjacent corner swap. So it's going to be 2R U, 2R UI, 2R. Turn the puzzle 180 degrees, counterclockwise, and then reverse what we just did. 2R UI, 2R U, 2R. Okay. Now what you're going to want to do is, just like with that previous corner swap, you're going to want to turn this back like so to get it back to its original position. Okay, so all right, so then you want to get the Skewb move back. So this green belonged up here. So I'm going to turn it to here and move the Skewb move back. Okay, so that'll bring this back to here. So basically these three, these three were swapped. Now they look a little bit off because these got corner swapped, so let's corner swap them back just so that you can see exactly what had happened. So 2R U, 2R UI, 2R, turn the puzzle 90 degrees counterclockwise, 2R UI, 2R U, 2R. Then move this back. So with that done, you can see exactly what had happened, and indeed this went to here, this went to here, and this went to here. Now you don't have to do that last corner swap back. You could. This is just to demonstrate the nature of those moves. So just to kind of demonstrate it again, if I do it again, this white will go here, this yellow will go here, this orange will go here. Or alternatively, Well, okay. Yeah, we'll just demonstrate that again. So once again, I'm going to hold it here and do a Skewb move. Bang. Now I'm going to swap these two. So hold it so that this is in the front and the back. 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. Turn the puzzle 90 degrees counterclockwise. 2R, UI, 2R, U, 2R. This turns back. Go 1, 2 to sort of get you back to where you were. And then I'm going to take this. This green will come back up to here. So that was swapped. Now what I could do is swap these two back so that you can see it. 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R, turn, 2R, UI, 2R, U, 2R. Alright, so you can see the effects of that swap. One more, this will go here, this will go here, and this will go here. So we'll do it, move it in, swap these two, 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R, turn it, 2R, UI, 2R, U, 2R. This turns back, then I go to this face, and this is where we're going to turn it back in, boom, so we can get it back that way. This is just getting those corners back. Okay, so that's how you do it. Just basically corner swap it. So I invite you to go ahead and scramble it and try to solve it, just given that. But just for the sake of doing it, let's go ahead and scramble this thing. And go through what I do to solve this. So like I said, with all these puzzles, it's really just a trick. Just like with these mechanical puzzles, it was a trick. You had to figure it out, you had to learn how to think outside the box. Ha, no pun intended. Maybe a little bit of a pun intended. Now there's a potential parity situation that you can avoid, or not avoid, it's no big deal. You can easily get out of it. Fun thing about parities of reduction is you have to look to see where they came from. Is it truly a parity? Is it false equivocation? Do you have pieces that have rotational symmetry or translational symmetry based on pieces that look alike, or pieces that have the same have a shape that's symmetric? Okay, so pretty good here. All right, not bad. Looks like we've. That's interesting. There we go. Okay, so this is a nice scrambled 2x2 Skewb. So what I would do, if you really wanted to avoid any parity situations, is we have to make sure that we didn't Skewb this away from a 2x2 solve that's going to make sense. Because that Skewb can take it out of a 2x2 configuration that can be solved as such. Okay, so the first thing I would do is, let's do a 2x2 solve with the corners to see if we're able to do that. And you can do 2x2 moves or Skewb moves. So here's a green, yellow, and orange. So here's a green and orange. We'll go over to here. Now I'm assuming knowledge of how to solve a 2x2. So I'm going to take this. This is a top layer. This is a bottom layer. I want to move this up to here. So I'm going to move the bottom layer until I can do a move that lines these up. Another green solve. This can come up to here, so that's no problem. Here's a green corner over here. I can put it down right where I need it to be. And if I keep doing RI, DI, RD, it'll move it up from this layer to up here. If it's rotated wrong, if I just keep doing RI, DI, RD, it'll put it up. So RI, DI, RD. And then again, RI, DI, RD. See? No worries, now it's up. Okay, I'll turn this upside down, and I'm going to see if I can solve for the blue layers here. All of these are down, but let's see if I can match them up to where they're supposed to be. So this one belongs over here. Even though it's rotated wrong, this is blue will be here, orange will be here, yellow will be here. So this actually belongs over here. The other one is going to be red, blue, and yellow, so this actually belongs here too. Does this belong here? And it does. So they're all where they need to be, they just are rotated wrong. So what I can do is if I do RID, RD, if I do that twice, that'll be one set that'll bring that up. So how many times does it take to rotate this up? RI, DI, RD. D, and again, R-I, D-I, R, D. That's one set, and that's not rotated up yet, so let's do it again. R-I, D-I, R, D, R-I, D-I, R, D. Okay, two sets and it's up. I need a third set to get the bottom back where it was. So I'm going to move this into position, and we go R-I, D-I, R, D, R-I, D-I, R, D. Okay, so that was 3 times. It did get the bottom back, but this is not in yet, so I keep going. R-I, D-I, R, D, R-I, D-I, R, D. This is now up after one set. I'm going to turn this into position now and keep doing this one. R-I, D-I, R, D, R-I, D-I, R, D. That was one set. I move this into position, and it should be one set because that'll return this back since this was one set, 2 sets, 3 sets. So if the parity of this puzzle is correct, one more R-I-D-I-R-D set should rotate this into position and this will be back. So R-I-D-I-R-D, R-I-D-I-R-D. Now, I can't stress that enough because you can see this bottom did return back. And in a real 2x2 solve, this should have been rotated up, but it didn't. And the way that we got that is, I'll just kind of rotate this to the proper corners where it needs to be. What happened is that one of them was out, and I had to do R-I-D-I-R-D twice. Then I moved this into position, a third time brought this back, but now this was one out, so I had to do 1, 2, and 3. So this was 2 and 3, then 1, 2, 3 to get this back again. So it had to be multiples of 3. This one needs another one, and it's not rotated right. So if I rotate this in, this whole thing is going to be messed up. I'll need to do it 2 more times. What that tells me is that if I try to solve it like this, that will be a parity here. So all you need to do then to get that parity out is simply do another Skewb move to rotate this where it's supposed to be. Boom! Now that you've rotated it where it needs to be, it's just a matter of getting our solve back again. So this green got taken out of here, so we'll move this down, across, and up. So now that's in. So we take a look and we simply do the same thing that we did before. Now this is where it needs, let's move this to where it needs to be, which is over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start rotating others around. This is not where it needs to be. None of them are, so I'm going to do an algorithm to rotate this around. This is just 2x2 and actually Rubik's Cube strategy. So I'm going to do U-R, U-I-L-I, U-R-I, U-I-L. Again, I'm just going through a usual beginner's method 2x2 solve, just for those who pick this up and they have no idea what they're doing with it. So anyway, this is where it needs to be. This is in the same, this is where it needs to be. This is also where it needs to be, and so is this. These are just rotated wrong. Now, if the parity of the puzzle is correct, doing R-I-D-I-R-D to rotate this up and this up should be multiples of 3. So we'll do R-I, and the reason why that works is because when this is rotated wrong, doing R-I-D-I-R-D enough times will eventually rotate this correctly. The bottom will regenerate when I've done it 3 times. R-I-D-I-R-D, that's 1/2. R-I-D-I-R-D. Okay, that's 1. Do it again. R-I-D-I-R-D, R-I-D-I-R-D. Okay, that's 2. So now I'm going to move this one into position on the right side, and it should be 1 because that was 2. 1 more will be 3, and this will regenerate back. So R-I-D-I-R-D, R-I-D-I-R-D. Okay, so this is now all up. This got regenerated back. I can turn this here. And if this were 2x2, you'd be done. Now, you don't have to maintain the 2x2 structure. I would challenge those that are more advanced solvers with what I'm about to do. Try to keep it in the 2x2 position, just for the sake of it, for the challenge. But you can redo a 2x2 solve after you've reduced it if you want. So it might even be easier rather than doing all the deconstruction and reconstruction. And the puzzle is simple enough to where a partial rescramble, full rescramble is no big deal. If this were putting together the outer shell of a icosahedron, then you might not want to do another full resolve of that. Okay, so what I'm going to be looking for is I'm going to be looking for 2 cycles or 3 cycles. So this can come to here, which is good. This yellow, well, let's see if there's a yellow over here, so I want to bring it into here, or I want to bring a red one in. So why don't I try to turn this around to bring this yellow around? So I'm just going to do R-I-D-I-R-D, R-I-D-I-R-D. Now I'm not going to be maintaining the 2x2 solve the whole time, but you can try. Now notice I did that R-I-D-I-R-D once. If I do that 2 more times, I'm going to regenerate the bottom. So where I have it is this will go here, this will go here, and this will go here. A nice 2 cycle. So we're going to move this, Skewb this into position here. Now I've got to flip-flop these two. So I'm going to move this here, because ultimately I need to move the Skewb move back, or I've created another parity. By moving this, by skewing it in and skewing it out, I've taken the parity back out. So I've already oriented the puzzle by doing a 2x2 solve, knowing that the 2x2 solve will work. So I'm going to put this here and do 2R U, 2R UI, 2R. So I have to position the two that I want to swap to the back, to the front right and the back right. Turn it 90 degrees counterclockwise. 2R UI, 2R U, 2R. I'm going to move this back and turn this around until I get to the original Skewb, which is over here, and just Skewb it back. Boom. Okay, now after having done that, you could corner swap it back if you want, because what happened is that this went to here, this went to here, and this went to here. But by turning it back, it'll sort of demonstrate where you came from. But you don't have to. You can keep going. You've taken the parity out, so you're not held to the structure. But just for the sake of completion, if you wanted that extra challenge, let's corner swap this back to our U, to our UI, to R, counterclockwise, to our UI, to our U, to R. I'll move this back so it's in the correct configuration. So you can see we've got all these back. The problem is this was rotated, but remember we did R-I-D-I-R-D once, and this seems to be messed up. If I do it twice, I'll get myself right back to my 2x2 solve. So R-I-D-I-R-D, R-I-D-I-R-D. That's twice. Now again, for the third time, D-I-R-D, and you can see I'm back to my 2x2 solve. And at the end of the day, this white one went to here, this orange one went to here, and this green one went to here. Now, that's for the advanced solvers, but I can peel away from doing it that way. This is just to show that we can try to maintain the shell of the 2x2 if you'd like. But there may be a lot of deconstruction and reconstruction. So let's look at some other opportunities. Okay, here's a yellow, an orange rather. So I want to get an orange one in. What I can do is I can look at this side and borrow any one of these. So I can move this up to here, so this can go to here, which is good. This green can go to here, which is great. This blue can go to here, which is super fantastic. So it's a 3 cycle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Skewb this in. I got to flip-flop these two. So the two that I'm going to flip-flop, I'm going to move to my right side, right front and right back, to our U, to our UI, to R, 90 degrees, to our UI, to our U, to R. That was my middle move, which just swap those. Move this into here, find where I Skewbed it, which is right here, boom. Okay, so I actually put 3 in, these 3. Now these two got swapped, just for the sake of it. You don't have to do this, you can just keep going, but let's go ahead and swap it back to our U, to our UI, to R, turn, to our UI, to our U, to R, put it back, and then you'll see the move that I did to sort of get it in that position, which is this. I can move this back and I've got my 2x2 back again. So at the end of the day, whoops, you can visualize the ones that I put in. It was a 3 cycle, this to here, this to here, and this to here, and to get it to here, I did this move here. Okay, so let's see other opportunities. How about this one? Well, here's an orange here, yellow here rather, so I can borrow it from this side. Anything that goes here, I can borrow from this side, so I'm going to turn it over here. This will go here, this will go here, and this will go here. Now maybe I want more for my buck. Is there anything else that I can put in? Well, it'll be nice if I can put a white one in. I do have a white one here. So why don't I turn this to here? I want to move this without moving these corners, and the best way to do that is just doing RID, RD. It won't affect the top, it'll just affect the bottom. So I'm going to rotate this around until this comes over to here. So RID, RD, RID, RD. Okay, I'm just going to keep in mind that I only did that once. Down and up once. So now this will go here, this will go here, and this will go here. So let's do it. So if I want to get it back, I'll RID, RD this 2 more times, and then I'll make my turn over here. If I wanted to maintain my 2x2 shell. Okay, so we skew this into here, boom. Swap these two to the right back, to the right front and right back, to our U, to our UI, to our 90 degrees, to our UI, to our U, to R, and move this back. Not this one or this one, but we're going to Skewb it up with this. Splat. Okay. So, I think. Yes? Yes. Okay. So Skewb it back here. Okay. So this is now back in. These were all exchanged. And you can keep going. I'm gonna swap these again to our U, to our UI, to R, just to get it back to its original configuration. To our U, to R, and this goes over here. Okay. Now what I want to do is, if I want to have that little bit extra challenge and get myself back to the 2x2 form by reconstructing after I deconstructed it, I know that if I do RID, RD 2 times, it'll put this back where it was before, which this white one was here. So RID, RD, RID, RD, that's 1. Again, this is not a portion that you need to necessarily do, and that's here. Okay, so now all I have to do is remember that I turn this back, and I'm back to my 2x2. So in reality, this went to here, this went to here, and this went to here, something like that, or not exactly. Okay, so I'm going to abandon the whole 2x2 part and just show you, if you wanted to do it that way, it is more of a challenge and it does take more time, so why not? Anyway, this is nice because this will go here, this will go here, and this will go here. Let's optimize what we can do. So do I have an orange? I do have an orange here. Or do I have a blue? I don't. So let's go ahead and RID, RD this until this orange piece can go here. RID, RD, RID, RD. I did that once, do it twice, and I'll go right back where I started from. So this to here, which is good, this to here, which is good, this to here, who cares? So Skewb it in, make my swap to our U, to our UI, to R, 90 degrees, to our UI, to our U, to R, and this turns back. Okay, now we've got to Skewb it back, and that was from here, boom. So now this is in, so you can see that we're getting there. So over here, this red will go here. This green, well, I want to put this green over here, and that red will end up here. So how am I going to get the green up here? Just go RID, RD. It's not rotated where I want, so we keep doing RID, RD, RID, RD. Not yet. So I'm not even keeping track of the 2x2 element. Again, you could do that if you wanted, but now I'm no longer going to do it like that. So this to here, and this to here. So we're going to Skewb it in, swap these two to our U, to our UI, to R, turn, to our UI, to our U, to R, move it back, find where it's skewed, which is right here, and done. Now I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to swap it back. Let's just keep going. See how many we can do. So this blue or this red, I want to find a red one here. I can't find one here. Let's try this one. Red one here. Well, this one is spoken for. I can look to see if there's a red one across here. Nope. Okay. Blue here. No. Maybe there's a blue one along here. There is. So I'm going to move this in like so. And then I'm going to turn it to here so it's in line. This blue will go here. This green, well, I'd like it to go green over here. I don't see a green, but I do see a red, so that will still work. Blue to here, green to here, but red to here. Skewb it in, turn it to where I need it, to R, U, to R, UI, to R, turn, to R, UI, to R, U, to R. Turn it back, then Skewb it back from here, boom. And I'm just going to keep going. I'm not gonna do any corner swaps. How about here? Orange? No. How about orange anywhere on this plane that's not spoken for? Nope. Where does that orange exist? It's right over here. So I could turn this to here. So now I got the orange on this side. Then I can turn this to put it into position. This to here, this to, here's a green one here. So let's go ahead and RID this until I can rotate this to where it needs to be here. Now the reason why I'm doing RID is because I don't want this one to change or this one to change. And by RIDing it, I'm only affecting the bottom, but I don't care about the bottom anymore. So RID gets the green into configuration, which will allow a 3-cycle to put 2 in, Skewb it in, corner swap these two, to R, U, to R, UI, to R, 90 degrees, to R, UI, to R, U, to R, bring it back, find where the Skewb was, and that comes back over here. So this can very quickly start to reduce these corners. All right, how about this? I need a blue. I have a blue here and a blue here. I'm going to turn this to here, then I can turn it like so, blue to here, red to, well, where's there a red? Nowhere here, and it looks like I have one more red to deal with, so I got to get this out anyway. So I just need something that's not spoken for. Anything down here? Sure. This blue one here. So let's move this up. RID. Now I could use this because it's going to take this out but substitute it with this, so it really doesn't matter. This to here, and this to here, so that's okay. Move this in to our U, to our UI, to R, turn, to our UI, to our U, to R, turn this back, flip it in, and we're good. Okay? How about this? Find a yellow one. I look here first. I can't find it. So I'm going to see if I can put anything in this up here on this side. And the answer is yes. I can move this here, this to, well, there's a white one here. Wouldn't it be nice if I can use something else? Either a white one down here that's unclaimed, right over here. So why don't I RID this one up to here? RID. It's not where it needs to be, or it's not rotated, so we'll keep RIDing it until it's where it needs to be. Not yet. RID. See, a little sticky with the 2x2 moves, but nothing too bad. Okay, this will come here, this will come here, and this will come here. Skewb it in, swap these two, to our U, to our UI, to R. This is a corner swap, 90-degree turn, to R, UI, to R, U, to R, and move it back. Okay, find where you skewbed it, right here, and bang. Okay, so notice I'm not corner swapping it back. I'm not trying to maintain the 2x2. You can, it's a little bit more of a challenge, but not necessary. Okay, this to here, this green, is there a green one? And now you'll find that it's really just a 2 swap. So everything else is in except for these two. Well, let's get a third one in here for a third cycle. So let's move a green one into here. Now I could keep the blue one in there. It just means I'm going to have to do one extra step. So let's just go RID. Not quite where I want it to be yet. RD. And I think one more. Okay, perfect. This blue to here, this green to here, this green to here. Skewb it in, corner swap, corner swap these two, turn it to the right, to our U, to our UI, to R, 90 degrees, to our UI, to our U, to R, turn this back, and then find the edge that you skewed, which is here, move it in, and you can see the whole thing is now reduced. So the rest is just a simple 2x2 solve, which there's no issues with parity because you already took that out. Now if you didn't take that step initially, you might find yourself having to do a re-scramble, and that's fine too. I usually like to get rid of it at the start, but you might find that a layer is in but the blues don't quite match up. Now I know that they'll match up because every Skewb move that I did, I undid the Skewb move. If there's a Skewb move that I didn't undo, then that would be a problem. Now, one thing I'm showing you is that I am not a speed solver. Never have been, never really was interested in being that. Okay, move this here, and one more edge, corner swap to our U, to our UI, to R, turn, to R, UI, to R, U, to R, turn it back, and done! So there it is. That is the solve of the Super Z 2x2 Skewb, or whatever it is that they named it. Looks a lot like other puzzles in my collection, so in order to demonstrate it, I have to show the changes in motion with it and the variability with it, but definitely a good puzzle to pick up. Ideally, someday if they have all these three things, I can get rid of some of the bulk of the collection and just have this, which is a 2x2 Skewb and a helicopter in one. It's a very playable puzzle, very well made, worthy of a collection, just enough fun and time to the solve where you can add some complexity to it if you want. So there you have it, enjoy it, and thanks for watching. Actually, I have a challenge out there. My foray into the mechanical puzzles was actually quite fun, but I'm thinking maybe we can combine those worlds. I kind of thought that this looks a lot like a brick puzzle, or maybe a shapeshifter, like a 3x3x2 or something like that. My challenge is this: would it be possible to make this into a twisty puzzle, but after solving it as a twisty puzzle, you then had to solve it as a mechanical puzzle with all of the complexities therein, a merging of those worlds. So imagine if this started off as a twisty puzzle, you had to solve it as such, and then you solved it as a mechanical puzzle until you pop the top off. I've seen ones where you solve it as a twisty puzzle, then you pop the top off, but that is my challenge. So that's going to take some expertise to design a mechanical puzzle like this, as was shown on the last demonstration, the last video, but to start it off as a twisty puzzle. And not just any one that has some complexity to solve, like a mirror version of that. So to all of you designers out there, that is my challenge. Whoever can achieve that, fame and fortune will follow. Thanks for watching.